Welcome to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I am your host, Kelly Morgan. Today I am bringing you another fabulous poet. Her name is Consuela Perry. Now, Consuela was born and raised in Smithfield, North Carolina, and that's where she currently lives today. She's a country girl at heart. She started storytelling at the young age where she would write little stories in her notebooks. Only when she was in the 8th grade did she start writing poetry. Her first poem, Just Another Day, was used as an emotional outlet to deal with the divorce of her parents, and from there she realized she was a pretty good poet. After many years of writing, she published her first poetry collection in December of 2020. She is here today to read and share that book with us. The book is called Finding Strength Amidst the Scars by Consuela Perry. Book club members, meet and welcome Consuela Perry. Consuela, thank you so much for being on the podcast, being a member of the BHP Audiobook Book Club. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. So I love it when poets come through and they come in and read their stuff. But before we get into that, I always like to take a few moments and kind of chat with you and speak with you and kind of let the listeners know who you are and more about you as an author. So, tell me about Consuela Perry and how you came to write the book and tell us about, what your book is about.
Well, I'm from Smithfield, North Carolina. It's a little town on eastern North Carolina. And I started writing when I was in 8th grade, and it didn't start out as me thinking about, being a poet or writing. I was always good at English class, but the reason I started writing was because my parents were going through a divorce, and, as an 8th grader, 13-year-old dealing with all those emotions, I just needed a creative outlet. And so I wrote one poem, and then I ended up going to college and I majored in English, and I just started writing a lot because, English major, we write a lot. So I just started writing poems. I had some poems submitted into a poetry magazine that my college published. And it just started from there. And I just started writing poems every now and then until they collected until I basically wrote about 70 something poems. So that's how it all started.
So what made you decide to take some of these poems and then actually put them in a book?
Well, my friends, especially my grandma, always told me that I needed to write a book. And my parents, I have a very supportive family. And so they were always telling me that I need to put my poems together. And I finally just did it. It was like, first of all, I was on medical leave from work because I had surgery. And so I just decided to put it all together. I was like, I need to do this. And it was scary because as an author, as a writer, it's like a very vulnerable feeling. You're putting your work out there, and it's like it's like a piece of your heart and soul. You don't want someone to like trample over it because this is like how you're feeling, is your emotions. So, but I decided to go ahead and do it and get over that fear.
And so you're a newly published author. Your book published this in 2020, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In December?
Yes.
And so when you went to go self-publish, what was one of the misconceptions that you now know was a misconception? You probably didn't know at the time, but what's one of the misconceptions you had about self-publishing?
Well, I think I would have been better off if I would have started promoting the book beforehand, but doing it on a whim. There was no like pre-promoting the book. So once I published it, I had to like kind of scramble to like promote it and market it, and you have to do all that yourself without a traditional publisher. So I've been like on social media, just like promoting it every day, and I've been gaining followers. That's good, but just like promoting it, marketing yourself, especially with a new author, nobody knows who you are, so that's definitely a thing that new publishers should think about.
Yeah, one of the things that I think most writers don't think about is the business side of self-publishing, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you were probably focused on putting this book together. I'm sure when the book actually looked like a book, you were ecstatic. And
Yes.
you thought you had probably reached your goal, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I got this book. Now what do I do?
Yes. Yeah, would you say, the business side of things? I've never considered myself an entrepreneur. My boyfriend is an entrepreneur. But now, like, thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I am an entrepreneur. Like, I never really wanted to be that, but I have no choice. I kind of got pulled into it because, if I want people to like buy my book, I have to promote it and market it. So, yeah.
And the funny thing is that I didn't realize is when you go to promote and market your book, people want to know who you are.
Yeah.
People don't buy your book, they buy you. Right? If they like you. And that was hard for me because it had never occurred to me that is something that I would need to do. I just figured I'd write this book, y'all would buy it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it didn't work out that way. And so I think that's a misconception. So now that you're published, and you can say that you're officially a published author, what would you tell somebody who is maybe thinking about being published? What can you tell them to maybe make their journey a little bit easier than your journey was?
Like I said, I would definitely say promote it ahead of time. Be involved in social media. Get an editor. I would definitely say get an editor because I didn't realize it until my mama read my book and she like pointed out so many like spelling errors or like grammatical errors, and I'm like, oh shoot. So I had to take it off Amazon for a minute, like re-edit it and like put it back on Amazon so people could buy it. But yeah, get an editor. I learned my lesson.
Yeah, and editors are important. And then one thing I learned about the editing process is there's all different types of editors.
Yes.
Right? So I didn't know what I needed as far as, when somebody said get an editor, I didn't know what that meant because there are some editors who would just look at your grammar.
Yeah, some proofread, yeah.
Then they're not looking at anything else. Yeah, so it's been a journey as far as self-publishing, but I'm glad that you decided to move forward, and I'm glad that you have decided to join the book club and share your book. So tell us the name of your book.
Well, the name of it is called Finding Strength Amidst the Scars. Oh, it's just basically about, so how I came up with the title is basically about, I kind of deal with anxiety a lot. I'm an overthinker, and this book is basically supposed to be about finding your strength, even though you're going through certain situations, like situations in life that may scar you. And so that's how I came up with the name of the book.
I like it. So when we were getting to know one another, you had said that you had mentioned some of your favorite writers. One of them you said was Stephen King. I used to read all of Stephen King's stuff back in the day.
Yes.
Right? I didn't, then I just kind of stopped with horror, but I read a lot of his stuff that's been turned into movies. I've read. Yeah. Books are always better. And then you mentioned Edgar Allan Poe, which I find incredibly interesting because I thought Edgar Allan Poe was hard to read. He is one of your favorite authors?
Yes, my favorite story by him of all time is The Telltale Heart. I love that story, yes.
I just thought that was interesting that he would be, because nobody's ever said Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. So, I thought that was interesting because I like his stuff. I just always found it difficult to kind of get into.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like Stephen King kind of takes some of Edgar Allan Poe's stuff and modernizes it. So, Edgar Allan Poe was like the father of the modern day mystery. So he's like the father of horror to me. So I love Edgar Allan Poe.
That's cool. So, let's get into your book. So you've got this great book of poetry. I can't wait for you to kind of get into and reading us the poems. And so I'm gonna just kind of fade into the background and let you do your thing. So feel free to start whenever you are ready.
All right. So this first poem that I'm going to read is called Lifeless. It says, "Those eyes have seen 1,000 lives, her eyes like warm pools of honey, but darkened by fear. The bees come humming. Her ears have been beaten down by lies grown men try to deny. She listens to them call her out her name, blood boiling, while her heart is consumed with unmitigated rage. But she stays to be beaten, laughed at, and smacked. Defeat clouds her puppy dog eyes. All she does is sit there on that tattered sofa, absent of life, tracing the scars on her encumbered wrist, where the blood once ran, now healed, but of course still there. No one seems to care that she feels trapped inside her own mind. As the night turns gray, she slumbers, but there is no peace. As time passes her by, she hopes that time will take her away." The next poem is called Ecstasy. "Our love is like ecstasy, a natural connection when our bodies are together, naked, longingly melded together. When I'm in your arms, it feels like the most natural thing in the world. Natural, right, the most beautiful thing I can conjure in my mind. I close my eyes and relive every blissful moment with you. The way you held me, the way you tenderly touched me, the fire between my legs when you kissed me there. You mean so much to me, and I hope I mean as much to you, as you make love to me over and over again." And the next poem is called Pain. "I write to feel the pain. I write to avoid the pain. I write to understand the pain. I write to embrace the pain. I love to write because I can express who I am when I feel like no one hears me. I write because sometimes, just sometimes, I feel misunderstood. Writing is my release to unleash the pain inside, and sometimes I even create the pain. Pain for whatever. It really doesn't matter. It just gives me something to write about." And the next poem is called Drug Addiction. "All I need is one more hit, another phone call, one more tryst. I think back on the memories. I try not to go there. It's all too much for me to take, like sticking a needle in my arm, like snorting up pain and not seeing my fate. Even though I knew that my pain would be great, I won't try to elaborate because it hurts to think about him, my addiction, my drug of choice." The poem is called Black and Blue. It says, "The screams, the throwing, I bang my head against the wall, tears run down my face. I ask myself, why do I stay? Out of fear, out of love, I struggle to make it another day, but I do. I obey his commands and live another day. His evil grin haunts me, pushing me on the bed, he taunts me. Lashing out in anger, punching me, trying to hurt me, I break down. I'm a mental wreck. I can't fight him. He's bigger, stronger, forceful. I lay there waiting for it. I'm incoherent, nauseous to the pain. As he thrusts again and again, I lay there imagining life and death. Life has been a disappointment, a failure. I have no reason to live, but death seems to be a dear companion that I would gladly revere." Next poem is called Vacancy. "He robbed me. Who am I? I don't know. There's nothing left of me. I'm a shell of a person. I'm not who I used to be. What you see is just a fragment of who I used to be. He took that away from me. Who is he? He's not who I wanted him to be. He said he loved me. He said he cared. That's all lies because he's not even here. I weep and I weep. I cry out his name. I fall to my knees, begging him please. I can't live without him. My sanity is shot. I won't live without him. Not anymore. So I take out my gun, put it to my head, count 1, 2, 3, 4, bang, I'm dead." And then my last poem that I'm going to read, this is actually the poem that I first wrote when my parents divorced, so this has sentimental value to me. So it's called Just Another Day. "Have you ever felt empty on the inside, feeling like you can't go on in this topsy-turvy world we call home? Have you ever looked in the mirror and hated the face staring back at you? What about the best friend who you've been in love with for so many years and who doesn't even care? Just remember, no matter the circumstances, it's still just another day gone by. Do you feel like time is just passing you by while everybody else is enjoying life? You're the outcast looking in from the outside. Have you ever toyed with the idea of taking your life but didn't have the guts? Popping pills in a way that would leave you motionless, slicing your wrist to watch the blood escape your body? Have you ever felt numb on the inside, incoherent to the pain you feel when your world has fallen apart? When you've had to deal with your parents' divorce because of your dad's infidelity? Let's just say, who cares, because it's not even important anymore. Just remember, no matter the circumstances, it's still just another day gone by. What about the people who stare at you because you're different? Do you ever feel you have to mold yourself into society's image of beauty? In the end, it's not even important what they have to think or have to say. And all that matters in the end is what you think about yourself. Because all you have to do is just remember, no matter the circumstances, it's still just another day gone by. Because in the end, every cloud has a silver lining.
So, Consuela, I really liked your poems. You're a really good writer. Do you have other books, that you're going to be coming out with?
Yes, I'm working on I want to work on another poetry book. It'll be love poems. I'm trying to make a completely book, poems based on love poems. My boyfriend is my inspiration for that one. So, and then I'm also working on my first novel, which I'm a little nervous about that one, but I just finished first chapter last night. So I'll be working on that one.
Okay, so I'm interested. You're working on a novel. You've completed the first chapter.
Yes.
What was the biggest challenge to starting that first chapter?
I'm probably just in my head a lot because, like, to me, I don't see how authors do it. Like, authors who write novels, I'm like, how do they, especially like these huge novels, like, how do you even, it's like trying to keep your reader's interest and like character development and dialogue, making sure everything is good to where you can keep your reader's interest. And so just like, just the feat of writing a novel is what scared me. But I ended up, I don't know if you've heard of this website called Coursera, but they have different topics that you can study and you can get certificates, or if you just want to do it for free. That's what I started. I started this novel writing class, which has helped me just to get started on writing my novel and get feedback from other classmates and stuff. So I did that. And so that's what got me to my first chapter. So, yeah.
Nice. So you took a class to kind of help you overcome any blocks or hurdles or kind of stumbling blocks to kind of start that story. That's the hardest thing for me as a writer. I have the story in my head. Yeah. I just have a hard time. That first sentence. Yeah. How are you going to open it? Right. Yeah. So I think I commend you for taking a class to try to learn how to do that. So now that you're a writer, you're published, working on your second poetry novel, working on your second poetry book, working on a novel. What does literary success look like to you?
Literary success, like, I've tried not to focus on the sales. And that's hard because I want my book to get out into in front of as many people as possible. But my goal with my writing is to be able to, especially with my poetry, is to be able to relate to people. Like, that's why I think it's important that I did publish my book, because a lot of people deal with anxiety. A lot of people have dealt with similar situations that I write about in my poetry. So basically, my poetry is to relate to people. And one of my favorite quotes that I remember from college is from John Steinbeck, who wrote The Grapes of Wrath. He said, "A writer out of loneliness is like a distant star sending signals. A writer just wants to be able to relate to people." And so that is one of my biggest goals as a writer. I just want to relate to people and for people to be able to relate to me.
So as your journey as a self-published author, self-publishing, although there are a lot of free resources, ultimately you have to pay something, right? You have to dole out a little, you have to dole out some money. Yeah. So what was the best money you ever spent in that self-publishing process?
I would say that I would say my just getting someone to do my cover.
Yeah. You know what? Covers are important. I had read where people, buy a cover. That's what catches their attention.
Yeah.
Cover can make or break your book. So how did you go through that process? Did you know what you wanted when you were thinking of the cover, or did this person, kind of give you ideas?
I told him the basic premise of my book, what my poems meant to me. And he basically came up with the concept of the cover. But I gave him an idea of what my poetry was about. And that's how I came up with the cover.
Yeah, it helps to have somebody, if you don't have an idea, I think, sometimes you get lost in the process. So as a writer, do you believe in writer's block? Do you believe there's such a thing as writer's block?
Oh, yeah. Like you said, there's been many times where I haven't felt like writing anything, or like couldn't think of what to write next, especially with poetry, with my poetry, because I tend to write when I'm going through something. And so I usually tend to write when inspiration hits and I'm dealing with some kind of emotional stress. But yeah, writer's block is definitely real.
Yeah, I don't write happy poetry. I don't think any of my poetry is happy, which is why I will probably never write a poetry book. I like stories. I like to tell stories. I have stories in my head. And so but poetry, that's like my private pain, writing through my pain moment. Yeah. So Consuela, I'm so happy that you stopped by the book club and that you're a member of the book club. Let everybody know again where they can get your book, the name of the book, any other links, or however they can connect with you.
Okay. Well, again, my book is called Finding Strength Amidst the Scars, and it's only on Amazon. You can get it in paperback and Kindle version, and you can find me on Facebook. And my Facebook page is Sway the Poet, and my Instagram, find me on Instagram at beautiful_dreamer 1991, and I'm on Twitter, Consuela_Perry.
And so your second poetry book, do you have a title for that yet, or do you have a date that you believe it's going to be available?
I have a title. I don't know the date yet. But it's going to be called Affirmations of Love. At least that's the working title. It might change, but that's the title right now.
Fantastic. So you'll definitely have to come back when your second poetry, book is ready to drop. I would love to hear poems from Aspirations of Love, and definitely keep me posted on your novel. Can you give us an idea of what it's about?
Yeah, well, it's about this young girl who finds out her grandmother lives in New Orleans, and she finds out that her family has like a history of voodoo in her family, and like they come from a very powerful voodoo ancestor. Her name is Marie. I'm using Marie Laveau, who I've been doing my research on her, and she was actually like a voodoo queen in New Orleans in the 1800s. So she was a big deal in New Orleans at the time. So I'm kind of like getting inspiration from her, and I've been doing some research on voodoo myself, and it's interesting.
So that sounds like a really good book. So how did you come up with that idea? Did it just come to you, or?
Yeah, it just came to me. It just came to me. I don't know why.
That's cool. That's that creative gift that you have. Yeah. And so I'm so happy that you're willing to share, and, good luck on getting it done. I can't wait. I can't wait for you to come back on the second book. I always like to ask my guest authors, poets, if they want to leave the listening audience with any words of wisdom, inspiration, anything, any knowledge that you want to leave us with.
I would just say that, if you're an aspiring writer, just write, but also do your research. And, before, if you want to publish, just do your research before publishing. There's a ton of information on the internet. But yep, that's what I would tell aspiring writers.
Fantastic. And that's always good advice to do your research before you dive into it. Consuela, thank you so much for being here. The door is always open. You're always welcome to come back as a member of the book club. Tell us one more time the name of the book.
Finding Strength Amidst the Scars. And I appreciate you for having me so much.
You are very welcome. Thank you for listening to another episode of Bright Headed Publishing Audiobook Book Club. I have been your host, Kelly Morgan. We just wrapped up with poet Consuela Perry. Consuela's book, Finding Strength Amidst the Scars, is available on Amazon. She's also working on a second poetry book and a novel. She'll definitely have to come back. If you are an author or someone who supports authors, we would love to have you on the show. Email me at brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Again, that's brightheadedpublishing@gmail.com. Thank you, book clubbers, for listening. And as always, keep writing.